Aw, yeah, it's time for another episode of the Vactor-Verse, and we are recapping Loki currently in the Vactor-Verse. I'm here with my good pal Shaw. How you doing, Shaw?
Oh, I'm doing just real good, real good. We out here. We out here.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear, Shaw.
How's it
And
going, Vactor?
it's going excellent because I think we're about to talk about my current favorite show on TV, Loki,
Oh,
season 2, episode 2, entitled Breaking Bad, Shaw.
Breaking
So we're gonna
Brad.
get
Breaking Brad.
Breaking Brad. Sorry, I am dyslexic. Breaking Brad. We're gonna talk all about that today here in the Vector Verse. Last week we were Shawless due to some scheduling conflicts, but Shaw sent in a nice little message that I read. So you can go check that out in our previous episode. But I'm happy to see Shaw's face. I'm happy to have him back and have Shaw's peak
Oh yeah,
right here again.
it's very peaky today. Very peaky. I woke up
Yes.
like this. I just want to put that out there. I woke up like this. I went to
That is
bed in a Vactor-Verse shirt.
yeah.
I woke up in a Vactor-Verse shirt. I
Yeah.
haven't showered because you know what?
Yeah.
Why mess with this when it's already perfect? Okay, you don't. If it
Yeah.
ain't broke, don't fix it.
You're 100% correct, Shaw. So I'm happy to have you here, and I'm happy to be talking about Loki season 2. Right off the bat, Shaw, what were your initial thoughts on Breaking Brad?
Uh, you know, it was a little bit of a slower moving episode, but I didn't hate that. It was just a little bit more cerebral in that sense, a little bit more focused on the character development and things like that, understanding Sylvie and whatnot. And this new character, Hunter B5, um, Brad Brad Wolf,
Yeah.
is that what it was? Brad
Yeah.
Wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked this episode. I didn't love this episode, but I also just felt like it was a necessary episode, if that makes sense. Like
Yes.
some episodes, they serve a purpose. They don't necessarily have to be like shock and awe or keep you on the edge of your seat. Sometimes it's all about just telling a story and getting from one point to another. So I think this was a necessary aspect of things. Certainly a lot of crazy stuff went down in it by the end of the episode, and I know we'll talk about it, but yeah, overall I liked it. It was okay. What about you?
Excellent. I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than you did. I didn't love it, but I really liked it. And what I like about this show is the character development, spending time with all of these characters that we loved. We already loved Mobius and Loki and Sylvie from season 1, but now being introduced to Obi and this time the TVA kind of in shambles now,
Yeah.
completely different mixture and a completely different vibe than it was in the first season, where you're thinking, okay, TVA is the one and all, like the end all be all, right? Like everything they're saying is true. All these the time gods and everything, like everything is correct, and that was pulled from the comics. So people who were kind of looking into it and saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, now I know where this is going. This is exactly like the comics." No, you didn't. No, you didn't. TVA is fake. And that's what I love about this season is that everything was kind of flipped on its head, and we're trying to reestablish like where are we? What does the TVA stand for in this season basically? Like what is their purpose? What is their mission? Now that I think we can it's been established now, I think Miss Minutes was running everything behind the scenes, and now we're gonna go chase after her and Renslayer, and we still haven't seen Kang yet. He's gonna appear later in this season, as we saw at that. Was it Quantumania that had the? I think it was Quantumania
That
that
had the
teased.
end credit scene, right? That
Yeah,
was a scene from Loki. Yep,
it
exactly.
looked like the 1800s or something, like the old timey.
Victor Timely was
Yes, yes.
his
So we still
character's
haven't
name.
seen
Yeah.
that yet. So we're definitely gonna get that. But I'm really having a great time with this show, Shoff, and I think this season is. I feel like Marvel they're kind of at a crossroads right now. We were talking off camera, off mic about like the Daredevil stuff and completely resetting the MCU. Like, where are they going forward? Because this phase so far, phase 5, has not been, let's say, spectacular. It hasn't been, shiny and chrome. It hasn't been everything that we've wanted it to be. I think you and I have enjoyed it for the most part, just going off of our talks about
I think you more
Quantumania.
than me. I think
Oh,
you've enjoyed it more than me. I
yeah.
mean, most of the movies that have come out, I've been really kind of disappointed in, especially and I kind of maybe I exist in a weird funk here, but like Doctor Strange, I thought that was Multiverse of Madness. That did not live up to my expectations personally. Quantumania did not live up to my expectations, even though uh, I loved seeing Jonathan Majors in the role of Kang. Full disclosure, I'm pro innocent until proven guilty. So when it comes to talking about Loki season 2 or talking about Kang or He Who Remains or whatever version variant of Kang exists, I personally really enjoy his performance. And so I'm always going to talk positively about Jonathan Majors on this podcast because I'm not talking about what's happening in his personal life. We don't know the details. It's not for us to be pointing fingers until all facts are on the table. So, yeah, putting that out there because there's plenty of people who are passing a lot of judgments without knowing the full story and just taking these little tidbits here and there. So he's innocent until proven guilty. That's how this country works. Let's go ahead and lean into that personally. Yeah, but I mean, I love his performance, especially He Who Remains. Watching that last season, I still think about it, and I still go back and watch like his like moments, because he just was making brilliant choices, and I it's one of those things, and I hate to say it, I hate to compare it to this, but like, where you were, if you're of the age where you were alive and, of like an age where you could remember stuff, where you were when 9/11 happened, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
and I hate using this as an analogy, but like, it's that for me, like, there's a certain amount of how powerful it was to witness that on the screen and see that happening, as much as watching him do his work in He Who Remains in that moment. He just had a very engaging, powerful performance, and so I'm here for it. So yeah, that's what I gotta say. But I'm looking forward to seeing more of him on season 2.
Yeah, man, I can't wait to see what he does. But what's very interesting about that you bring that up, it's now come to light. Now that we've got a little bit more time, as has progressed. There's actually a really good book by Joanna Robinson and Dave Gonzalez about the MCU, that just came out. And in that book, they chronicle like the entire MCU production timeline, like what was happening behind the scenes at Marvel. The stuff up to COVID, I pretty much was up to speed on. I knew what was going on. But post COVID, it is fascinating to see what was going on behind the scenes. And Jonathan Majors' performance in Loki really kind of pushed Marvel to say, oh, okay, he's going to be the big bad in phase 5 and 6. And like you saying, every choice he was making, you could see why Marvel would be like, yes, let's put everything on this
Yeah.
guy. Let's put everything on Kang. And now we still at that stage now where we don't know what's coming next. We don't know about Secret Wars. We don't know about Kang Dynasty. Everything is still kind of up in the air, and especially with the writers' strikes now, and then the actors' strikes, like a lot of stuff has been pushed back now. But the current phase that we're in, I think Loki is going to be like the template for what Marvel wants to do going forward on Disney Plus. Because another thing in that book that they mentioned, which was very interesting, was the way that they were going about making TV shows was the way they were making movies. They were like, "Oh, we'll just, we'll." A lot of times with the movies, they weren't necessarily going off the script. They were going off like it was just like a not like an improv, but everything wasn't set out. They were like, "Oh, we'll fill it in later. Set the action scene here, and then
Right.
we'll fill it in later." So they were approaching TV the same way, and
Mm.
I'm butchering my description of this. Read the book, but
Well,
it's interesting the way that they've gone about it.
yeah, I read the articles, and I think I know what you're talking about. They didn't have showrunners.
Yes.
They did not have pilots for these series. They, like you were talking about, they were fixing it in post. They were, not necessarily reshoots, but just like VFX things like that. Like they weren't too concerned about it in the moment. And Also, the episode counts being so varied across each show, that's so inconsistent. And
Yeah.
if the story calls for it, great. But if it doesn't, then like Secret Invasion did not need to be as many episodes as it was. It also was a major fail, in my opinion, for MCU in general. It leaves too many things out there in the ether for them to be, unfinished, unraveled threads. And I don't like when their stuff undermines previous stuff, like retconning and things like that. For instance, War Machine, Don Cheadle, I shouldn't say Don Cheadle, but whatever his name, Rhodey,
Right.
implying very specific things about him for the most of what phase 2 and onward. So just wild. But it's interesting that they have to rely on a villain to really be what makes the MCU great again, if that makes sense. So
Yeah. Which
um
that leads directly into Loki. And we put out a short recently talking about kind of like, hey, the fate of the MCU has to rest on a villain, becoming an anti-hero, becoming somebody that you care about, rather than because the heroes have kind of been dropping the ball lately. If you have an opinion on that, drop a comment down below. Let us know because I'm very interested to hear everybody's thoughts. But I like that Loki has really done a 180 from where he was in the first Avengers, and I think it's really Tom Hiddleston's performance that people just love his charisma and love the way that he, like you said with Jonathan Majors, the choices that he's been making, and Loki season 1 did a lot of that to kind of turn him around and make him the hero that we like, that we're as fans rooting for. And now in season 2, and especially in this episode, we saw some of that kind of darkness come out of, is he destined to be a villain, or is he going to change his ways and become the hero? That's interesting. I think the way that they're playing with that in this story is, okay, he knows that he's done bad things. Everyone knows he's done bad things. They talk about it in this episode specifically, but I you can't have that be the entire arc for the character. By the end of
right.
this season, right? Like he's not going to be a villain. We know he's going to be a hero. So how does he become that hero that we know he's destined to be? So I think that's very interesting. I think the playing with the good and the bad and the anti-hero, stuff like with same with the Punishers, kind of the same way. All of that stuff is very interesting to me. Do you I think with season 2, do you think he's taken a bigger step forward, or do you think it's kind of at the same place it was in season 1? He's already at that point now where he's going to be a good guy.
um if anything, I think he's embracing more of his mischief side this season,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
which is it was interesting because this second episode really kind of helped cement that, because you don't like, as much as you see about Loki, really most of the powers that you see him do really revolve around just manifesting daggers.
Right, right. In
That's all they
Avengers,
really
right.
have shown. I mean, yes, he's
Mhm.
had a few moments where he's duplicating himself or creating false, apparitions or whatever, but like
Right,
this episode I think really showcased like what makes him the god of mischief, because I feel like that really hasn't been fully explored.
right.
um
Especially not in season 1.
yeah, especially when you see like in season 1, Glorious Purpose Loki, the one played by,
Yeah, yes.
shoot, I'm blanking on his name. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was in the very vibrant yellow and green classic costume.
Yes.
And he, while in the void, is uh, creating these illusions for Eliath, to sort of attack and whatnot. And I was like, that right there, that is a demonstration of Loki's power, and we haven't really seen Loki do that. And so this episode was nice because you got to see a little bit more of his power set and what he's capable of.
Right. Yeah, because that first season, he had a lot of his powers taken away, and so being able to see him, like you said, that kind of the trickster god, the things that we want to see out of Loki, it's been this episode specifically has been fantastic. So I hope we see more of that going forward. Richard E. Grant was the actor. I just
Thank
looked him up.
you. There we
Sorry.
go. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
I have a question for you about
Yes.
Loki in general, or rather this season. Do you feel like it's getting a little too complicated in terms
As far
of,
as the time travel.
yeah, well, the time travel, the branch timelines, the sacred timeline? Like, I feel like as much as they've explained about the sacred timeline, as much as they've talked about pruning branched timelines, at the end of this episode, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it and are still listening, there's a rogue faction within the TVA that is basically bombing and pruning timelines, these branch timelines, to sort of create a more like manageable sacred timeline, I guess. But there's not, to me, like you can see those that are working at the TVA that are working on the good side, like Hunter B15. She's, they're like, oh my gosh, those were people. People are gone. People have been, basically uh, erased from existence. But you don't see it happen. And I think that removes a sense of, I don't know, like the
Empathy.
feeling behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt just a little clinical in that regard, like as
Right.
if you would prune like a plant, like,
Right.
like you don't
Right.
really cry, shed any tears over the branch of a tree
Right.
that you've decided to prune, right? Like,
The
but
impact
they
is
want
gone.
us to feel something for all these lost souls, but I just don't feel like there was anything there because you didn't see what that looks like for them. And I think I would have preferred a perspective of these branch timelines just like poofing out of existence or whatever that looks like, to create a sense of, oh my gosh, the implications, the sheer amount of gravity of this situation. And because that was missing, I kind of just felt like, okay, those variants are gone. Were they supposed to exist in the first place? Like, I just feel a little bit confused this season.
Mm.
And maybe it's just the introduction of so many new concepts all at the same time. But I
Yeah.
feel like they're asking a lot of questions, but not providing a lot of answers.
Yeah. I don't personally feel that, but I feel what you're saying for a new viewer or for somebody who's coming into it and they're not necessarily really into time travel or they're not watching this show specifically like for time travel stuff. Me, as you know, Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. You're also a big fan. I love this stuff, and so getting nerdy about timelines and time travel is really fun for me. I do get your point about not seeing the timelines that we're losing, the impact of it, and I guess that is a little bit of the Sylvie 1982, the branch timeline
Which was
purpose. I think.
seemingly unaffected. Like, there
Well,
wasn't,
right. They
but,
they
and like,
say that
why
they're
was
going to
hers
bomb it.
fine, right? Like,
Right.
that to me, like, if all these branch timelines are going out and she's like, I'm going to go back to mine, see what's left. Like, why would that one
Right.
convenient to the story that
Yeah.
that timeline still exists, but it looked like everything had been pruned.
Right. I
So,
think something is going to happen because where we leave her in this episode, she's fine. She's content at staying in that 1982 Oklahoma, Broxton, Oklahoma timeline. And obviously, something's got to pull her out. So I think it is going to get bombed. I think we are going to see something in the next episode. But at this point, that is a good observation from your side of we don't have any reason to believe like she's in danger or that it matters at all. But I think that is the purpose of her branch timeline. We're supposed to feel attachment, I think, to that. The 1982 McDonald's is like, oh, it's a quaint memory. Remember 1982 McDonald's? Some viewers are not old enough to remember, but Shoff and I think remember. I was born in 1982, and a lot of that stuff was interesting. We were talking about it off mic
yeah.
last night about it, and remember the analog menus before they had digital menus? Like what? And
Yeah.
like the outfits and stuff. And shout out to fried apple pies, Shaw. This is my favorite thing. My favorite dessert of all time is a McDonald's fried apple pie, which you can't get in the United States anymore except for Hawaii. If you go to Hawaii, you can still get the fried apple pies. If you go overseas, I don't know about the other locations, but I know Japan specifically because I've been there many times. Japan still serves the fried apple pies, and seeing Mobius eating it and being like, "Man, you just wanted us to have a good meal, B5." That I thought that joke was great for me, but I
The
think that's
episode
the
made
whole
me hungry.
purpose.
It definitely made
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
was like, "Man, it's too late now. I was gonna order DoorDash."
That was great, and I think you also brought up a good point last night when we were talking. It makes you kind of nostalgic for a time when McDonald's seemed a little bit more glamorous. It seemed like
Yeah.
McDonald's was a place. I mean, I think we're also looking at it. I'd have to ask our parents for more perspective, or if anybody's out there listening, if you were alive in 1982 and you have some memories, let us know. Are we looking at it from a child's perspective of, oh, there was a play, the playground was fun and the food was good, so we have this great remembrance of McDonald's, but um, the parents are like, no, it was still a garbage dump even back then. But I just like how they picked McDonald's, and they have kind of like this. They had a McDonald's a Loki meal for a little bit, and it had like a secret sauce that you could eat. It was kinda weird because of the timing of it, because the show got pushed back, McDonald's was like, "Alright, here it is, like,
Yeah.
2 months early." It was like, "Wait a minute, the show's not out." Um, but yeah.
We'll keep the sauce. Hopefully, it'll still be good by that time. Yeah, I just think, back in that time period, McDonald's was unparalleled. Like, there was no fast food that could even come close. It was the apex and also it was a family experience. I mean, the whether it was the outdoor play area for the kids or the indoor play area for the kids. I mean, I have very fond memories of going there. And when we would get to go, I actually remember as a kid, like I would sort of equate it to, this was how I could like gauge if I was continuing to grow up from being a kid to being like a bigger kid, is how much I could eat at McDonald's. Like, I remember I would have like a cheeseburger and that would fill me up, right? And then I would get two cheeseburgers, the classic two cheese. That's one of my favorite value meals, is the two cheeseburger meal. I can't tell you the number because they've changed it a million times, but it used to be like a number two.
Right.
And then it became the quarter pounder. I was like, I need more meat. Give me the beef. And then I was like, Mom, I think I can finish a double quarter pounder. And then I
Oh.
started eating double. And no judgments, people watching right now and checking out my physique. But like, there was something about McDonald's that just meant family. It meant a good meal. It meant fun, and I think that's why they chose it. And it makes perfect sense. But here's my rub, and here's my issue with how this episode ended. Granted, we see her interacting with this disc that was given to her by, well, not given to her, but she took it off of He Who Remains after she killed him. If this controls some aspect of time travel, I feel like she's going to be going back to like fix something, or she's going to hop over to another branch timeline or something like that. Because here's my thing, is the whole issue that was created by OB needing like the special part and then needing his temporal aura, but not having He Who Remains anymore, like to fix it. That was a completely immaterial plot line by the end of it, because they were pruning all the branch timelines, which is that in itself, would that not fix the temporal loom on its own? Like, right? Like, how would it, if there's not a bunch of other timelines, then that temporal loom thing is solved
Right.
that way.
I think something else is gonna happen. See,
Right.
unfortunately, we don't have the, a lot of reviewers got the first 4 episodes, so they
Oh.
already know what's gonna happen, but us mortals, Shaw, we only got the first 2 episodes. I mean, we've only been watching it week to week like everybody else. So, yeah, I think where we're at right now, that doesn't quite add up, but I bet you something is gonna within the next couple episodes, we're gonna see like, "Oh, it didn't work." Like, the way that we've been doing it, the pruning didn't work or something, like, they weren't doing it correctly. I think it's gonna be some type of well, Miss Minutes isn't here to save us or to help us, so now we did it wrong, like,
Yeah.
and so they're gonna have to go back and change something, but, yeah, that time pad that she's got, that disc, really is like an infinity stone. It's like one of the most powerful items now in the MCU, and the fact that she's got it, it's like, I hope they do something with that, so it's not like, "Hey, you had one of the most powerful items and you used it to go to McDonald's." Like, I wanna see her use it to, an extent to be like, this is why it's one of the most powerful items in the Marvel Universe, so
Yeah.
that's gonna be interesting. But also, what was interesting in that scene, where we're seeing her in McDonald's and then Loki showing up and seeing her, like, his first moments of seeing her and then her reaction, like, seeing him, we see that he still has feelings for her, and that was a big push for the first season, and I think now it's gonna be another huge thing, motivation going forward for this season. He's gonna do things because he still cares about her, because this relationship and this romance, which I think we talked about it last year. It's kind of interesting because it's him. It's a
Right.
variant of him. So that kind of feels a little bit weird, but pushing that aside, um, I think the Loki Sylvie relationship is going to be one of the better things about this season and going forward, just because these two actors are great and they've got good chemistry. Um, but I want to see what depths he goes to for her, like what he's willing to do specifically for her. And she, that one scene where she leaves and
Mhm.
he didn't get to finish his sentence, but kind of like, it's hard to be here without you. Like that, um that sentiment and that emotion I felt. So I really love all the stuff between Loki and Sylvie as we've seen so far in
Yeah,
this season.
and Loki and Mobius, great
Yes,
interactions
and their
there,
friendship, that's
especially like
another.
the key lime pie
Yes,
scene they had this
right.
episode. That was great interactions. I love that they're bringing Kyle more into the storyline, and he's going to have more interactions probably with OB, which is great.
Yes.
They're giving more for Hunter B15 to do, and she's fantastic. Um, what do you think about this new Hunter B5? Do you like so when this episode first started, I really felt like there was an episode I missed. Like
Oh,
it felt very disorienting with him
just the
just
way he was acting?
just the fact that the last time we saw him, he was a dutiful member of the TVA
Right, right.
working for uh are they calling her Docs, right? Like Judge
Yes, right,
Docs
right,
or
right.
whatever.
Mhm.
Um and they were going to go and I guess find Sylvie was the plan or something
Yes,
like that.
right.
And then next episode he's in the past a movie star. Like it was so disorienting that it made me question that if I'd missed something. Like
Right.
which maybe was the goal, but it was definitely something I was not ready for and it threw me off for a good like 10 minutes.
Mm.
Um and maybe that affected my enjoyment of the episode because it really felt jarring, but maybe that was the
Yeah.
goal. I don't know.
Yeah, I think with that, it was just something that they had to cut because there's only 6 episodes
Yeah,
in this
yeah,
season. You talked about the episode length, and it would have been nice to kinda get his whole backstory of becoming disillusioned. Like, I'm in my mind, I have this whole story where, yeah, he found Sylvie, he became disillusioned, and even in the last episode, he was like, "This changes everything." Like, everything I thought was true is not true. So what nothing matters, like
yeah.
the Loki quote from last season. So, I think for me, that's where I came from. I was just kind of, "Oh, okay, I can see everything that happened to him, but we didn't see it on camera. We didn't see it on screen, and it was just kind of in the background." But I got thrown off by his wig. I was like, "Hey, is that the same guy from the last thing? Because now he's got the '70s haircut." Because we didn't get enough time in the first episode. It was like
No.
he showed up, he was talking about the water ski or the boat and insulting Mobius, and then he left. Like he got his mission and then he left. So there wasn't enough time for me to form an attachment to him as a character. So in this episode, I think there was more. He had a lot more screen time, first of all, and a lot more time to kind of build upon him. But I think it'll be interesting to see, does he become an ally now? Does he become, because he was like against Loki and Mobius in this episode.
Right.
He was kicking and screaming. So does he go back to Dox's side, or does he kind of continue with Mobius and Loki? So I'll be interested to see where he goes. But there's just so many storylines that I care about right now that his is kind of pushed to the back burner. I want to see the Loki Mobius. I want to see the Loki Sylvie. He Who Remains. We haven't seen that, or the Kang or Victor Timely storyline. Like we haven't seen that. Obi's timeline. Like I love spending time with him, seeing what his storyline is going to be. Storyline, not timeline. But all of these things are interesting, and the branching timelines getting pruned off, and this main timeline. How is that going to work? So all of those questions are still left to be answered. But I'm enjoying myself, Shoff, and I think Marvel patterning the rest of the TV shows off of Loki is a good thing. I think going forward, what they were talking about with the Daredevil show, where they are completely going back and rebooting it, retooling it, because Daredevil didn't even appear until the 4th episode, and it was like,
Oh,
wait a minute. Oh, go ahead.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was this one of the initial reports that came out, was he was not going to appear in costume until the 4th episode. That's like something you would do in the first season, not if we're
Wow.
doing a continuation of the Netflix timeline, like the continuity of the Netflix show. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I think they were still in the mindset of the old, oh, we don't need a showrunner, we don't need outline, just do it. Just
Yeah.
throw everything up against the wall. So I think patterning everything off of Loki now, Loki feels like the most complete TV show that we've seen so far, I think.
Well, and unless this is going to change, I think Daredevil is supposed to have like 18 episodes in their season or something
That
crazy like
sounds
that.
about right.
Which that in itself, I'm like, that's double, almost triple some of the other Disney Plus Marvel
Right.
shows.
Right.
So that's a big change. What I thought was kind of ironic is that they released the synopsis, like an updated synopsis of Daredevil Reborn or Born Again, whatever it was called.
Born Again.
And then the next day, they're like, nah, we're scrapping the whole thing. I'm like, how do you not, like, how does your left hand not know what your right hand is doing that much, where you can release
just shows you.
Yeah, where you can release that, and then on the next, like, oh, you know what? I woke up, I slept on it, didn't feel good. It's like, give me a break. That's ridiculous. That's like Warner Brothers type crap going on.
100%. That's the same vibe that I'm getting.
Yeah. So that's definitely not going to fly.
Yeah, hopefully, because we want to have this image in our mind, like, oh, Marvel has it all planned out. They know exactly what's happening. But like I said, this MCU book that came out, and a lot of the reports we're seeing is like, oh, they don't have it as together as we thought they did. So I'm I don't think it's a matter of if. I think it's a matter of when does Marvel get back on track with the MCU. And it's just how many movies and how many TV shows before you and I are on here on this podcast being like, this is the MCU we loved, and Endgame and everything leading up to Endgame. It'll just be a matter of time.
Yeah, I think the show will help bring it back to its full glory.
Yes.
I just hope that the Marvels movie is decent, because otherwise November is going to be both bright and dark at the same time.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll be back to talk about the Marvels as well once that comes out, and we'll be back to continue talking about Loki season 2 right here in the Vactor-Verse. Shaw, thank you very much for joining me, my friend. You're always a pleasure and a delight, and seeing Shaw's peak is always the highlight of my day. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to all our listeners and viewers. If you have a question or comment, like I said, there's some great stuff to pick apart in Loki season 2, or even in the MCU. If you just want to talk about the MCU, leave a comment down below. Let us know. We're always here for you. And like I said, next week, we'll be back to talk Loki season 2, episode 3.
Ooh, can I close this episode out? Can I do it?
Close it, Shaw.
I love Loki season 2, and you should too.
Yeah.